All right. So I'm going to talk about consenting adults. And some of you guys know this is possibly like a part two to when I was talking about stop doing stupid stuff in the bedroom. Stop acting a fool in these bedrooms. And of course, I was primarily addressing a lot of the topics that are going on right now about the Shannon Sharp and his 22-year-old young OnlyFans accuser at this point, and this has been a running theme. Okay, primarily as of late, with a lot of black male celebrities. Not all, but enough where this has become the talk of the town. But it made me also want to talk about um, something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, I should say, and that is the aspect of consenting adults. I kind of touched on that on the other video, so if you haven't seen it, you guys can click on it. Um, but what is a consenting, or what are consenting adults, right? And so if you look it up, consenting adults is just in its purest definition to adults, or it could be more than to adults, but any adult or adults that uh, give willful permission to engage in sexual acts or sexual intercourse. And that is really just the essence of the more general sense of that. Um, and I think this is where these stories keep coming up. I mean, the Diddy trial is coming up in less than 3 weeks. Now Shannon Sharp, okay, and then we just coming off the heels of you know accusations being made against Jay Z, and then it was accusing Jay Z. He fought his stuff like a real G. I'm telling you, that's how you do it. And and then of course there was the R. Kelly thing and the Bill Cosby thing, and I'm just gonna say it. Black guys, y'all gotta smarten up. Okay, and I'm not saying that there's not white guys out here doing it or other type of guys. And I know a lot of y'all say, "Oh, well, that's because they're targeting us for the stuff that these other guys are doing. They're targeting us because they want to see a black man come down." I'm not gonna say that that's not necessarily not true, but I also know that a lot of times, you know, there's a scripture that say resist the devil, submit yourself therefore unto God, resist the devil and he'll flee from you. Meaning, hey, we have also a responsibility and accountability not to put ourselves in in the path of evil. Okay, we pray, Lord, deliver us from evil. And I'm saying that a lot of guys, I mean, again, you've seen some white guys like this. You had Charlie Rose and Matt Lauer and um let me see who was the biggest one, Harvey Weinstein, and things like that. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's just back to back to back to back. And I know that Diddy is probably going to argue this is just taking down another black guy. They don't want to see black men with money. They don't want to see black men with white girls. And again, I'm not going to say that those thematic aspects may not be playing a part, but I'm saying if you know that, and if you really believe that, and if that's your understanding of what this is about, then why is y'all steadily putting yourselves in that mode? It makes no sense to me, right? So that's what kind of made me kind of start thinking about consenting adults. And again, you guys saw it on my video earlier. I don't have a problem with black men dating and marrying and outside of the race. I know some black men and black women do. I don't have a problem with that, because I do know that, you know, God's got somebody for everybody. And again, I don't have a scarcity mindset. As a black woman, as a heterosexual black woman, I desire a black husband. God have that for me. If you're another sister and that's what you desire a black man, don't hate on that brother with a white girl, a Chinese girl, a Asian. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. If you want a black husband, God will provide that to you. There's a man of God out there for you. So you just gotta hang in there and know that God has the right one for you. Because just because somebody black don't mean that they're a good fit for you. See? You know what I'm saying? And so I don't get into to that. I'm not against interracial. What did Dr. Umar call them? Snow bunnies. I'm not into the snow. I'm not against being. I'm not against interracial relationship. Let me just be clear to say that. You know, I'm not anti snow bunny movement. If that's how you flow, then you know, and that's where you at. That's where you at. That's how you want to rock. Rock on. That's how you know, it's what floats your boat. Like that song, float on. You know, I mean, I don't deal with that because I'm gonna get what I want to get. You see what I'm saying? And I'm gonna have what I want to have, and it's got nothing to do with nobody else. You know, it's between me and the Lord and in that situation. So that's just me kind of setting the groundwork for that to give some context of where I'm coming from, the paradigm from which I'm coming from. So to be clear, I'm not against black men being with women of other color. That's what you want to do that. Listen, I'm gonna say this, then I'm gonna move on to my main point. Listen, I have had black guys, okay, to approach me, okay, and and I knew some of these brothers, okay, they were very much had, how can I say this and make it sound right? I'll say this. I've been approached by black men, okay, since being an adult. I've been an adult a long time. I'm 51 years old. Excuse me, guys, for yawning. It's late. But I want to do this before I go to bed. Long and the short of it, I've been approached by some brothers who I could tell, you know, that they, you know, may have come up culturally different. They may have come up with more of a whiter, there's no other way I could say that, maybe exposure, and more of a maybe suburban kind of culture. Like, and you know, some of them I knew had actually dated, you know, women of other what do you call that, ethnicities, you know, non-black women. And I could tell you guys this, I understood why they did, because me, just being a black girl from around the way, West Side Shy, there was no connection there, right? And so again, race is not just, you know, it has to be a connection. There has to be connectivity there. There has to be a synergy there. There has to be some symbiosis there, right? And if it's not there, it's not there. And just because two people are black don't mean that you guys are evenly yoked, culturally speaking. And so I'm thinking about one particular brother. He came up to me and he was like, you know, hey, I want to talk to you and la la la. And he was fine. I mean, he wasn't giving Steve Urkel vibes. He was definitely a very, very attractive brother. Chocolate, just gorgeous. But culturally speaking, there was no connection there. And mind you, I'm not the kind of sister. I never, you know, went out with guys who was into the thug life either. I that was just not my speed either. So again, you have to be, there has to be a synergy there. And black, just because a guy is black doesn't mean he's good for you as a black woman. And I'm like, no, baby, yeah, you need to be over dating, you know, maybe not, you know. And I'm saying I could understand why he would find more of a connection with non-black women, you know, because I could see clearly, like the average black woman, like myself, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the things that he was into, culturally speaking, I could tell there was a disconnect there. You know what I'm saying? And so, and to be perfectly honest, his mother, he had an adoptive mother, and his adoptive mother was a white woman. Okay. And, uh, and when I say white woman, I mean she was a for real white woman. Okay. And his white mom was my boss. Okay, so his mom was a for real, uh a for real white woman. You know what I mean? She was a white woman. And he and his brother had been adopted. And his mother had a natural born son, so their elder brother was an older white guy. But yeah, I could clearly see. So he was a nice guy, but connection wise, cultural wise, nah. So I'm like, yeah, no, he would definitely hit it off better, with a young lady, may from being of another culture, who may have been white or other. So I'm saying that to say this: I really want black women to get set free from that. Y'all get rid of that, covetous or bitterness or scarcity or jealousy of that. When you see a black guy with a white woman, just know, hey, he may have more connection with her. Because if this guy opened his mouth and started trying to talk to you and try to holler at you, you may be like, "Ooh, child, go over there with her." And that's how I felt. Like there was nothing there for me and him to vibe. And I think he was a nice guy, but it was just culturally speaking. I'll put it like this. I'm gonna sum it up. I actually found more cultural connectivity with white guys and Latino guys than that black guy. And that's that. I'm for real. I am so for real. So that should tell y'all everything you need to know, right? About this black dude, right? So that's what I'm saying. So just, again, we got to let people, be free to, date who they want to date, be with who they want to be with, and hopefully they're not beating them, but you know what I mean, to be with who they want to be with. So don't despise that. I don't despise interracial couples. Y'all go over there. My uncle, rest in peace to him, he was married to a white woman. I have a former white auntie. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up seeing a lot of those dynamics. You know what I'm saying? So let me just put that there. Okay, so I'm not coming from the perspective that I'm against these black men dating white women and y'all need to stop dating. No, they could date who they want to date with, but you got to smarten up. And this is one of the things I was saying in the video earlier. You guys got to get wise out here. And I'm glad that more people are now starting to say this. I saw a video on, what's that podcaster named Lovely T? And she showed Cameron, the rapper Cameron, aka Killer Cam, from the Diplomats. And he was like, look, Shannon, you guys got to get smart. I even heard Ray J, even a while back, talking about this. Like, man, said, hey, even other black men are starting to recognize, like, some of you guys are acting like morons out here, okay? And you guys are not moving smart, okay? If you're not gonna move moral, please move smart, okay? And I really think that's what it comes down to. A lot of these guys, they're not trying to walk the straight and narrow. Let's just be clear. They're not trying to live a holy and a godly life. They're not trying to walk in a truly sanctified and submitted lifestyle where they just get them a nice wife and live a happy home life and be dedicated husbands and fathers. And I wish they all would. But the reality is our people are going to live the life how they feel they want to live, right? So a lot of these guys, they're living that sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of lifestyle, okay? And sin is pleasurable for a season, like the Lord say. But when that season is up, now where you going to be found with it? So, a lot of people got to find out that old saying, like my grandmother and them used to say, fat meat is greasy. And some people don't believe fat meat is greasy, right? So if you're not going to change your lifestyle, at least change how you're moving. And I think that's what I see. I'm glad to know more people are speaking to that, because it's ridiculous. Because I'm like, okay, y'all keep seeing, and they're just talking, oh, they just want to see a black man come down. This is just racism. But then when you look at all the stuff that is coming out of the woodworks about it, a person with just basic common sense and some level of adult maturity be like, you guys ain't moving smart. You're not moving smart. What are you doing at 57 years old fooling with a little 19-year-old anyway? 19, dude, come on. It can't even be that serious for you. I know it can't even be like that. Why is you moving like that? You know what I'm saying? Why is you even dealing with something like that? You know what I'm saying? And at some point, I think this speaks to something I think men in general need to understand. Like, you got to have some level of decorum. That was the word I was trying to say earlier in another video, and I said decor, but decorum. A lot of times I think men, y'all don't move like you have to have some level of dignity and decency and decorum. And I think you guys are just kind of I don't want to say placating. That's the wrong word. You guys are trying to more or less place that and transfer that and transplant that process to women. Women should have morals. Women should have decorum. Women should be smart. Women should not. But so should you. Because again, it takes two to tango. It takes two to start and it takes two to quit. So men, you guys have gotta elevate. You guys have got to get smart. And there are some men who are like, hey, you know, and you guys got to start, really moving with maturity. You know what I'm saying? Again, if you're not going to change your lifestyle, if you're not going to follow God and do it the righteous way, at least get some wits about you. And that's the part that's really, I think, tripping everybody out about this situation with Shannon Sharp. A lot of you guys are just throwing your careers away. Your some of them are married. You're throwing your families away. You're throwing your children away. In the Bible say that, for a whorish woman, a man will be brought to crumbs. Yeah. God is telling y'all about it, but y'all don't want to hear him. Well, I want to hear what God got to say. I'm gonna go do that. I'm believing all that. That's okay, but he believe in you because he know what's up. Okay, so y'all moving how y'all moving, but y'all really need to really stop moving like that. Get into the book of Proverbs. Get into the book of Proverbs and see what's up. Get into the book of Ecclesiastes. Get into God's word and see what's up. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You guys have gotta do that. You know what I'm saying? But even if you don't want to do that, then at least use some wits about you. So let's talk about consenting adults, because it's already 18 minutes into this. Um, so consenting adults, and this ties right into it. This is why I don't believe that consenting adults um is the end all be all solution. Okay, because what we're finding is a lot of times now it always goes back to the he said she said. Well, are the women consenting to this? Are these two consenting adults? Okay. What's happening? Is there consent? Okay. And I understand that they say some celebrities now making people sign these NDAs or consent forms of, hey, I consent to whatever may go down, and I'm not going to try to, come back on the person. But let me tell you something. Let me tell y'all why consenting adults, again, while there is a level of prudence to that, and there's a level of, obviously, the obvious answer is yes, you need to have two people that are consenting to enter into any form of, relationship, whether that's a fly by night kind of thing, whether that's marriage, whether that's dating, whether that's just a fleeting kind of, passing fancy or whatever, just purely sex. Of course, there needs to be consent there, right? But let me tell you guys why it doesn't, consenting adults is not enough. Because, see, this is where I think that a lot of the controversy is going down. And I kind of alluded to this earlier. Here's why. Because sometimes people's consent can change. And I think now we're going to get into a real legal discussion of, or this opens the door, a possibility for more of a legal discussion of, we know where consent begins, but where does consent end? And I think that is where all of these cases, and I mean, even down to even what is going on with Justin Baldoni and the Blake Lively thing. Right now we're seeing where men and women are just gunslinging each other. These celebrities are gunslinging each other in the press, in the media. Okay, you got the Diddy and the Cassie thing coming up, and now you got Shannon Sharp and this little young lady, and then you got, and even though Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's, theirs is a little bit different, but what is Blake Lively charging? She's charging, hey, Justin was, made me feel uncomfortable, sexually uncomfortable, and I was sexually harassed. And he's like, no, she was the one who was, making things impossible, and she was the one being the provocateur, the saboteur here. And so it's down there, really, truly, he said, she said. And so now, as men and women, what's really happening here? I think people are missing the deeper conversation. Clearly, men or women are seeing these things through two different sets of eyes. And I think as a society, we're missing an opportunity to have a deeper and a more meaningful and a bigger conversation that really goes into how, as a society, do we really raise our boys? Do we really raise our girls? What is the way that we truly prepare our young men and our young women to deal with each other as they mature and grow into adulthood for romantic and sexual situations? You see what I'm saying? And I think we're missing the opportunity to have that real conversation, because I think that is where the heart of a lot of this stuff is. It's like men are seeing the stuff one way and feeling like they're the victim, and the women are being the ones who are being predatory. And the women are saying, no, we're the ones being the victim, and these guys are being predatory. Now, somebody is, come on now. Two things can be true at the same time. And I think that this is where, when people say, well, were they both consenting? And I've had this discussion with family members, with friends, and the consenting. Well, are these two consenting adults? Well, if they both consented, then that's it. But I don't believe that's it. I believe that's the start. That's not the totality of it. And that's why I don't believe that just because two adults are consenting, that consent is a forever end all be all thing. And I'm going to show you guys why. Okay, look at two people who get married. You have to consent to get married. We've all seen it. Say yes to the dress. She said yes. Guy gets his knees, pop the question. Now some of the ladies are getting on their knees and popping the question to these guys. Y'all mad at it, but I'm saying, how y'all gonna be frowning on them? We live in a day of time two men can marry each other. Two women can marry each other. Why y'all gonna be mad? Because a woman is proposing to a man. Well, that's not tradition. Well, if you're gonna follow tradition one way, then you gotta follow tradition always. See, what gets me is how everybody like to cherry pick. Okay, and everybody have selective memory and selective outrage. But if we're living in this society that's so open, so free, everybody is free to feel good. Like those songs say, everybody's free to feel good. Everybody's free to feel good. I used to love that song. It was about Roselle. It was a great song. Everybody's free to feel good, right? That's the kind of society that, by and large, Okay, we're all saying, and we're not all saying it, most people are saying, well, everybody free to feel good. Okay, so if we're not gonna go to tradition on marriage across the board, then let's not go to tradition on no level about it across the board. If you can be okay with that, then you should be okay with that. Okay, if you're not going to be okay with that, then you can't be okay with that. Okay, and so let's just keep it a buck across the board. But I hate the cherry pick. It's the cherry picking for me. And that's the part that gets me about most people. Most people, we love to cherry pick. We love to talk about morality, as long as that morality and those cherries aren't being picked off of our little trees. Okay. And as long as we're not under the microscope, we love talking about it. We love, oh, that person. But what about where does that spotlight hit you in the process of looking at that? Okay. I digress. So, to the point where now, let's look at two people getting married. Okay. So, a man and a woman have to consent to marriage, right? So, if consent is this forever, end all be all situation, well, think about it. If consent is something that goes throughout and there's never a moment where it can be overturned or it can be broken, then why do we have divorce? Right? Because think about it. You have to consent to marriage. But somewhere down the line, these two people, for whatever reason, sometimes it's for a good reason. Sometimes it's just irreconcilable differences, but for whatever the reasons are, what the consent was that day when they both looked so beautiful and handsome walking down the aisle and everyone's crying with tears of joy. Then it turns to, hey, we can't stand each other, and we're at this court and we're telling people, hey, it's over. So what happened to that consent when you say, I do? When the pastor or the justice of peace say, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? And when you answer and gave your consent, I do. Okay? Then if your I do is forever, if your consent is forever, then guess what? Why y'all in divorce court? Okay? So why am I saying that is this? I guess the bigger question is, where does consent end? We know where it begins. It begins with both two people both agreeing to go and do some stuff, no matter what that is. Again, at some point, Shannon and this woman got into some wacky agreement of choking each other. And a lot of people do this kind of weird stuff. You know what I'm saying? They get into, I even think about that wonderful actor, Armie Hammer. He got in trouble a few years back. Why? Because he says, hey, it was consenting, and then the women were trying to accuse him and he was cleared of those charges, but they were trying to accuse him of cannibalism. And he said, no, we were just being wild. And this is why I say again, guys, men, y'all have got to smarten up. Y'all have got to understand that guess what? You can't go into those bedrooms acting out like that, like some caveman, all holds barred. We're just doing everything. You can't do that, because just because that woman is consenting today does not mean that her consent is that she's going to feel that same way about that consent tomorrow. Okay. Or you may not feel that same way. And let me show you how it works with men. Because we only think it works that way with women. Do y'all know why a lot of men feel like, oh man, it wasn't even like that. I was just having fun. I was just trying to hit it and quit it. Man, she done caught feelings. I can't get rid of this girl, man. She calling me and texting me and, fell in love, man. I don't want to deal with her like that. But see, sir, you consented. See, this is why sex is such a powerful thing. God only intended it really for married people. Because what you're not thinking about, sir, those moments of pleasure, you consented and she consented. But what you saying is, hey, once that act was over, I didn't want to consent to nothing else further. I just was there to have a good moment. Now she really want to go on and have something more deeper than that, and I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that. So what happens in that case? That's when that man, his consent. So where does consent end? That's the question I pose to you all. I don't have the answer to that. I'm curious about the answer myself. And hopefully you guys will provide your own answers. I'm inviting you guys, put it in the comments. Feel like you want to write back. But where does consent end? Because clearly consent has an ending point. Okay? We see it. That's why I pointed out the issue of marriage. It has an ending point. It has a stopping point. So it's okay to say, oh, well, two people are consenting adults. But clearly that's not good enough. That's not strong enough. Because even after these people are consenting on like I said, at that song, I mean, you guys heard it on the other video, after the morning after. I was singing the old Frankie Beverly song. Rest in peace to the great legendary Frankie Beverly. But after the morning after the night before, listen, it's all fun and games until it's not. And hindsight is truly 2020. Lovely T was talking about that. If you guys don't know who Lovely T is, check her out. Lovely, Lovely Ti. Lovely T. Great channel. I love to watch that woman's podcast. And she's kind of talking about some of these issues. But you guys, I think her channel is Lovely T 2002. So, guys, check out Lovely T's channel, her podcast. But again, you can find her on YouTube. But again, where does it end? We know where consent begins, but where does it end? And I think that is where the lines get blurred. I think that is where a spirit of confusion really enter in. I think that's where men and women are both coming from two perspectives, right? And we were talking earlier, a lot of times people may have said, man, I consented to do it. But then after a while, when you start thinking about it and you get on the flip side and on the back side and you come up out of that purple haze of that moment, you're really thinking and you're there grappling with it of what you did or what was done. See, people don't really want to talk about sex the way we really need to talk about it. Okay, because we all have come up with these wacky, weird fantasies that Hollywood put before us, that the porn industry put before us, that our own fantastical minds and fantasies put before us. But that's not the reality of it. After that moment is over, after the do has been done, many times you're there dealing and grappling with what those moments were. And I'm going to tell y'all this, it's very few people who actually don't. I do believe there's some people, man, it's like, hey, they could go out there and smash 3,000 people in one night if they can get the opportunity. And it would be just like them, going to Wendy's and, ordering a Frosty, a cup of chili and a double cheeseburger. It means nothing to them. But the average person, on average, male or female, you are going to have moments of, man, you're going to think about that because there's no way that you can participate in intimacy. How about that? I heard somebody say it before. Intimacy. There's no way that you're going to be able to do that. Men, you guys are entering a whole other soul's body. And ladies, you're allowing a whole other soul to enter your body. How can two people do that? Or multiple people. And you not come away with the residue. Okay? With the aftermath of that. You would almost have to be a person who you'd have to be truly an amoral person to not have some level of thought about it. And there are some people who are completely godless, completely amoral. And they're not even just immoral, they're amoral. They have no, but that's probably the minority of few people. So you do have some people like that. But I'm telling you, the majority of people, they're going to feel some type of way after it's over. So my point is where does that consent end? It's not enough to say, well, she consented. He consented. We both consented. Okay. But where does that consent end? Does that consent follow through to the end of the act? To the climactic act? And if everything was okay, one of the things that young lady said to Shannon on those audio tapes, and I was listening to it, she was like, no means no, Shannon, and it doesn't matter. No means no. It doesn't matter what happens, but if there's a no, no means no. And then this guy's like, oh, I'll choke you out. Like I'm like, come on, dude. Are you gonna really be moronic like that? You know what I'm saying? But now, according to him, well, we were just role playing. And see, let me tell you, this is where I say, my God, it's going to be this man's case obviously in the court of public opinion. It's not even a legal case right now, but I'm sure that's coming down the pike, according to TMZ. But the bottom line is this. Guess what? How about this? The fact that he gets into, well, I could choke you out right now. Being a big black guy is not a good look. Me being a big old black man choking out a little old white girl. And I'm like, man, for real? This guy, come on, man. Honestly, okay? But according to him, we were just role playing. And I think, again, this gets into a lot of the sexual dynamics of race and slavery and all this kind of stuff. And, guys, we can pretend that these dynamics aren't real. That's not really my point in this video. If y'all want to hear me talk more about that, watch the other video. But in this one, I just want to ask the question, where does consent end? Because it does end, but where does it end?